Asia, good evening America. You're watching World DNA with me, Jyotsna Kumar.
And I am Hema Korsara, and on the show today, Vice President Kamala Harris has now said that she is ready to debate former President Donald Trump. This comes as Trump and Harris are in a neck-and-neck contest about 100 days before the election. We'll of course bring you all the latest on this on the show today.
And also on the show today, Israel is seeking changes to a plan for a Gaza truce and the release of hostages by Hamas. It seems to complicate a final deal. We'll tell you about what that changes is, but first, the headlines.
The voters deserve to see the split screen that exists in this race on a debate stage, and so I'm ready. Let's go.
U.S. Democrat presidential candidate Kamala Harris says she is ready to debate Donald Trump, accuses him of backpedaling away from a previous agreement for a debate hosted by ABC News on the 10th of September.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris pressure Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu for ceasefire deal in their meetings with him in Washington. Harris says she cannot remain silent on sufferings in Gaza.
Reports claim Israel is seeking changes to Gaza truce plan and hostage release deal, complicating talks to halt the 9 months war on the enclave. Hamas reportedly rejects the new demands.
U.S. military says it has destroyed one Iranian-backed Houthi UAV launcher in Houthi-controlled area of Yemen to prevent threat to U.S. coalition forces and merchant vessels in the region.
Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar meets with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi in Laos, pushes for strong guidance to complete disengagement process in eastern Ladakh to resolve the border standoff.
Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf-led opposition bloc announces country-wide protest today for release of party prisoners, including former Prime Minister Imran Khan. Section 144 imposed in Punjab and Islamabad to avoid any gathering.
NASA and Boeing officials say 2 astronauts on Starliner capsule will remain at the International Space Station with no official return date as of now, as engineers continue to examine the technical problems with the spacecraft.
World champion Spain come from behind to beat Japan 2-1 at the Paris Olympics. Ballon d'Or winner Aitana Bonmati scores a goal and creates another to help debutants kickstart the campaign with a win. In his first visit to Washington since 2020, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met separately with U.S. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, and who's the likely Democratic nominee.
Right, discussions were held on the war in Gaza, of course, and the possibility of securing a ceasefire deal during these meetings. Harris sharply pressed Netanyahu for the humanitarian situation in Gaza, underscoring the death of over 39,000 people since the 7th of October.
We cannot look away in the face of these tragedies. We cannot allow ourselves to become numb to the suffering, and I will not be silent. Thanks to the leadership of our President Joe Biden, there is a deal on the table for a ceasefire and a hostage deal.
The Vice President's comments were closely monitored for potential changes in U.S. policy towards Israel if she succeeds Biden as president.
Speaking of Biden, in the first face-to-face talks with Netanyahu since he traveled to Israel days after Hamas's attack, the U.S. president continued his push for a ceasefire deal, which has been a subject of negotiation for months now.
A U.S.-backed proposal to release the remaining hostages in Gaza over 3 phases is something that would be a legacy-affirming achievement for Biden, who abandoned his re-election bid and endorsed Harris. It would also be a boon for Harris in her bid to succeed him. While Biden did not make any substantive remark post the meeting, White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby said the gaps are closable.
There are gaps that remain, and our team continues to work with our counterparts in the region to see if we can't close those gaps. We believe that they are of a nature where they can be closed and that we can achieve a deal. But it's going to require, as it always does, some leadership, some compromise, and an effort to get there. The President will be reaffirming for Prime Minister Netanyahu that he believes we need to get there, and we need to get there soon.
Meanwhile, mass demonstrations took place outside the White House. Demonstrators carried effigies of Israeli Prime Minister with blood on his hands. It read in bold letters, "Wanted for crimes against humanity." They chanted, "Arrest Netanyahu."
It's on your hands. Including the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, who had moral agenda in the support of the State of Israel.
Correspondent Susan Teherani elaborates on the strategic considerations Netanyahu might have had before meeting with Biden now that he has dropped out of the 2024 race. Listen in.
Benjamin Netanyahu may have viewed this meeting as an opportunity to secure concessions and agreements for the next 6 months or so. However, he may have also considered the potential of limitations of Biden's ability to deliver on commitments and the possibility of a successor reversing or modifying existing agreements, notably if that person ends up being Biden's vice president, Kamala Harris. Meanwhile, Netanyahu must balance his own domestic political considerations, as his meeting with the lame-duck president may also be perceived as a sign of weakness or opportunism by his political opponents, of course. By navigating these complexities, Netanyahu aims to advance Israel's interests while managing the uncertainties of a transitional period in U.S. politics.
Now, Susan further elaborates on the significance of Harris meeting with Netanyahu. Will U.S. policies towards Israel change if Harris wins against Trump and replaces Biden as president? That's the big question. Listen to this.
Kamala Harris's meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu is seen as being crucial, especially after President Joe Biden's decision to not seek re-election and endorse Harris. Israelis were closely watching the meeting to gauge Harris's stance on Israeli policy, particularly given her willingness to acknowledge the human suffering in Gaza. The meeting also indicated how Harris would approach the Israeli-Palestinian conflict if she became president, and whether she will maintain or shift current U.S. policy toward Israel.
Now moving on, a Western official and a Palestinian, along with 2 Egyptian sources, said that Israel is seeking changes to a plan for a Gaza truce and the release of hostages by Hamas.
Now, that seems to be complicating a final deal to halt 9 months of combat that has devastated the enclave. What is the plan? Well, according to the Western officials, Israeli negotiators want a vetting mechanism for civilians who are returning to the north of Gaza, where they fear these civilians can be supporting Hamas fighters. Israel said the displaced Palestinians should be screened as they return to the enclave's north when the ceasefire begins. The Palestinian militant group has, however, rejected the new Israeli demand.
Another sticking point revealed by the Egyptian source is over Israel's demand to retain control of Gaza's border with Egypt. Cairo has dismissed that demand, calling it outside a framework for a final deal.
Hamas senior official Sami Abu Zuhri has blamed Netanyahu for stalling the deal. Meanwhile, U.S. officials have said for weeks that a deal was close, but that hurdles remain. The United States now is urging Israel to look for a realistic plan.
As you have heard the Secretary say, in the absence of realistic plans for the day after the conflict, you will either have Israel occupying Gaza, which we reject. They have said they don't want to do. You will have Hamas in charge, which obviously is not in the interest of Israel and clearly is also not in the interest of the region. Or you'll have chaos and anarchy, which is a breeding ground for terrorism, will hurt the interests of the Palestinian people in Gaza, make it harder for them to get food and water and civilian assistance.
On the other hand, Israeli chief spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari has accused Hamas of exploiting humanitarian area to hold the hostages captive. Hagari's statement comes after the military said it recovered the bodies of 5 Israelis taken to Gaza by Hamas militants. Take a listen.
The Hamas terror organization abducted our hostages into their tunnels, 20 meters below the city of Khan Yunis. This was underneath an area that was previously designated as a humanitarian area by the IDF, an area for Gazan civilians to move away from the battlefield and receive humanitarian aid and shelter.
On the battleground, Israel is continuing with its operations. According to hospital officials in Gaza, Israeli strikes on the southern city of Khan Yunis killed at least 7 Palestinians overnight. And according to Hamas health officials, the Palestinian death toll from the ongoing Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip, it's risen to 39,175. This comes as an investigation led by Air Wars, a London-based non-profit, has verified about 75% of all deaths reported by the Ministry of Health in Gaza.
People in the Israeli city of Kargil are demonstrating against the government and in support of residents of northern Israel who were evacuated from their homes near the Lebanese border.
On the other battlefront in Yemen, the Iran-backed Houthi group leader has threatened response to Israeli airstrikes near Yemen's Hodeidah. Group leader Abdul Malik al-Houthi said the response is inevitable.
Earlier this week, Israeli fighter jets struck Houthi military targets near Yemen's port of Hodeidah, killing at least 9 people and wounding 87. The attack was in retaliation of Houthis' drone strike on Israeli economic hub, Tel Aviv. Yemen's port of Hodeidah has partially resumed operations after the deadly airstrikes.
Republicans' presidential nominee Donald Trump has made it clear he will not agree to a debate with Kamala Harris until Democrats officially name her as the party's nominee.
Right, and that's interesting because this comes after Harris said that she is ready to debate Trump. Harris, in her campaign video called "We Choose Freedom," took a dig at Trump. The 80 video shows a photograph of Trump and headlines about his legal trouble, even as Harris says no one is above the law. The video is aired across all campaign social media platforms.
The vice president has seen an influx of endorsements, fundraising for her new campaign since President Biden dropped out of the race. Earlier in the day, House Democratic women endorsed Harris for president on Capitol Hill as well.
Make no mistake, this is a politically astute vice president of the United States. I've seen her in action. I can talk about it on another occasion at more length, but let me just say she is capable officially, personally, and politically to lead us to victory in November.
Meanwhile, addressing a teachers' convention in Houston, Harris launched a stinging attack on Trump, saying the former president and his allies will take the country to economic crisis if given a second chance.
And when we fight, we win. God bless you. Do we believe in the promise of America? And are we ready to fight for it?
Now moving on, as tensions rise in the Arctic, a new era of geopolitical maneuvering unfolds in one of Earth's last frontiers.
The joint patrol by Russian and Chinese nuclear-capable bombers is another sign of collaboration between Moscow and Beijing in the Arctic region. And our next story explains how these recent developments have thrust the icy expanse into the spotlight as a potential flashpoint for future conflicts. Take a look.
Dramatic display of military might, escalating the strategic contest. Nuclear-capable Russian Tu-95Ms and Chinese WION XX bombers held joint patrols near the U.S. state of Alaska, over the Chukchi and Bering Seas and the North Pacific. The patrols underscore the growing importance of the Arctic as a focal point of geopolitical tensions between the U.S., Russia, and China. Alerted by the presence of bombers, US and Canada scrambled their fighter jets. While no foreign airspace was violated, this incident marked the first time Russian and Chinese aircraft jointly entered the Alaska Air Defense Identification Zone.
Russian and Chinese aircraft that flew together in the north here recently. This was not a surprise to us. We closely monitored these aircraft, tracked the aircraft, intercepted the aircraft, and which demonstrates that our forces are at the ready all the time, and we have very good surveillance capabilities.
The timing of this patrol is significant, coming just days after the U.S. released a strategy report highlighting Russia's increased military presence in the Arctic. Since the Soviet era, Russia has been reopening and modernizing several bases and airfields in the region. Meanwhile, China is investing heavily in polar exploration and research, aiming to build a polar Silk Road and secure alternative shipping routes to reduce its reliance on the Strait of Malacca. The Arctic, for long considered a desolate and inaccessible wasteland, has rapidly transformed into a hotbed of international interest and competition. As climate change continues to melt the polar ice caps at an alarming rate, previously impassable sea routes are opening up, offering tantalizing prospects for resource exploitation and strategic military positioning. This environmental shift has catalyzed a new great game in the north, with Russia, China, and the US vying for supremacy. On the same day as the Arctic patrol, Russia's defense ministry reported scrambling a Sukhoi 27 fighter jet to escort British Typhoon fighter jets and an RC-135 reconnaissance plane over the Black Sea, further highlighting the escalating military tensions in multiple theaters. Bureau Report, WION. World is one.
3 Chinese students, one of them aged over 40, are under investigation in South Korea's Busan.
The trio is accused of having captured illegal drone footage of the American Navy carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt on June 25th. The Chinese students were nabbed on June 25th after they reportedly captured more than 5 minutes worth of photos of the aircraft carrier and the base. It was docked at the Naval Operations Command, Busan's Nam district. Busan police allege that the students have violated the enforcement decree of the Protection of Military Bases and Installations Act. It stipulates that individuals caught photographing military bases or facilities without authorization can face 3 years in prison or a fine of 30 million won, that is around $21,700. The accused students, however, claim that their actions were purely driven by curiosity about the large aircraft carrier. While this case is still under investigation, there is reportedly no confirmation of the footage being distributed by the students.
Interestingly, it was the first instance of the USS Theodore Roosevelt making a port call in South Korea. It was also the first visit to the country by a US carrier in 7 months. The nuclear-powered strike Group 9 aircraft carrier entered Busan Naval Base on the 22nd of June. It was accompanied by destroyers USS Halsey and USS Daniel, and the aircraft carrier and destroyers were gearing up for a naval exercise involving South Korea and the United States as well as Japan.
This is not a one-off incident. It echoes with similar incidents in the U.S. In June, a Chinese citizen was charged after they used a drone to capture images of Virginia shipyard involved in constructing U.S. Navy nuclear submarines. In July, a 26-year-old graduate student from the University of Minnesota pleaded guilty to misdemeanor espionage charges. The reason? Well, she was photographing U.S. military infrastructure with a drone. Sentencing in this case is expected in late August or September. Bangladesh is cautiously emerging from over a week of turmoil sparked by student protests that left nearly 200 people dead and thousands more affected.
Right, our next story explores how the country's scars run deep and the path to recovery is fraught with challenges. Take a look.
As the curfew eases in the capital city of Dhaka, thousands of cars and bikes are slowly reappearing on the streets. But in the midst of the gradual return to normalcy, the heavy presence of troops patrolling cities and the continuing internet shutdown are constant reminders of the deadly violence recently. The violence claimed around 200 lives. The police detained nearly 3,000 individuals for taking part in the unrest. Human Rights Chief Volker Turk has also called for an impartial, independent and transparent investigation into the incidents. New images are now showing the police firing live bullets at the demonstrators. While the clashes have reduced since protest leaders announced a pause, the underlying tensions remain unresolved. Student leader of Bangladesh Quota Reform Movement claims abduction and abuse by authorities.
Our demand is now very clear. What we can see in the news media that a very well-planned propaganda is being disseminated. They're showing vandalism and the clashes only, but there have been killings. Nobody's addressing that. We'll highlight those killings in our next program and speeches. These murders should be investigated.
The nation's digital infrastructure, a cornerstone of its modernization efforts, remains largely paralyzed by a government-imposed internet shutdown, casting a shadow over its aspirations as a rising tech hub. The protests were fueled by frustrations over job quotas that reserved 30% of government positions for families of 1971 independence fighters. The policy is seen as favouring Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's supporters and aggravating an already dire unemployment situation. The government is promising a thorough probe, but politics is speaking.
We have formed a judicial committee, and the judicial committee will investigate thoroughly each and every single thing, regardless of who's involved. And we are committed to bring anyone and everyone to book who committed this crime.
We haven't seen such a bad situation recently. Applying such excessive force to quell a protest and killing hundreds of people there and then calling the army to impose curfew. Something like that didn't happen in recent times.
The temporary halt in demonstrations offers a brief respite, but the underlying issues are unresolved. As Bangladesh attempts to navigate this crisis, the world watches closely, wondering if this moment will catalyze a meaningful reform or mark the beginning of prolonged instability. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And with that, it's time now for a short break.
But don't go anywhere. On the other side, 25 years on, India remembers the Kargil War Victory anniversary with Prime Minister Narendra Modi all set to lead the Victory Day commemorations at the Dras Kargil War Memorial.
The quest for an Olympic medal is sport's greatest pursuit. Over 10,000 sportspersons are descending on Paris to realize their dreams.
The Olympics, it's a sweet way, but it comes with pressure.
The Olympic Games are the pinnacle of sport, and they demand sacrifices from both sportspersons and those covering it. I'm Digvijay Singhdeo, and I will be tracking the best in sport over the next 3 weeks from here in Paris.
Can India's sporting stars double their tally from Tokyo? Will new stars emerge, or will sport's big names maintain their stranglehold? Watch Gunning for Glory through the Paris Olympics at these times on WION.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back. You're watching World DNA with me, Jyotsna Kumar, and my colleague Kim Korsroya. Let's start with the headlines first.
but I'm ready. And I think the voters deserve to see the split screen that exists in this race on a debate stage. And so I'm ready. Let's go.
Potential U.S. Democrat presidential candidate Kamala Harris says she is ready to debate Donald Trump, accuses him of backpedaling away from a previous agreement for a debate hosted by ABC News on the 10th of September.
U.S. President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris pressure Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu for a ceasefire deal in their meetings with him in Washington. Harris says she cannot remain silent on sufferings in Gaza.
Reports claim Israel is seeking changes to Gaza truce plan and hostage release deal, complicating talks to halt 9 months of war in the enclave. Hamas reportedly rejects the new demands.
U.S. military says it has destroyed one Iranian-backed Houthi UAV launcher in Houthi-controlled area of Yemen to prevent threat to U.S. coalition forces and merchant vessels in the region.
Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar meets with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi in Laos, pushes for strong guidance to complete disengagement process in eastern Ladakh to resolve the border standoff.
Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf-led opposition bloc announces country-wide protest today for release of party prisoners, including former Prime Minister Imran Khan. Section 144 imposed in Punjab and Islamabad to avoid any gatherings.
No date yet confirmed for Boeing's Starliner capsule to return from the International Space Station as engineers continue to examine problems with the spacecraft. Astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sunitha Williams have been in space for 50 days now.
Hundreds protest in Paris against the Olympic Games on the eve of the opening ceremony. Demonstrations denounced the rise in public transport prices on the ecological impact and Israel's participation amid the Gaza war.
Now to mark 25 years of India's victory in Kargil, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to visit Dras to mark commemorations, lead celebrations and pay homage to the brave hearts.
Now, these are the brave hearts who held the line of duty and the nation. Prime Minister Modi will also inaugurate the Shinkun La Tunnel project by setting off the first tunneling blast virtually.
Preparations are in full swing ahead of the Prime Minister's visit as the nation marks the silver jubilee of Kargil Victory at the turn of the millennium. The war was triggered by Pakistani Army's covert infiltration and occupation of major hills adjoining Kargil district in India's Ladakh. Overcoming all odds, inhospitable terrain and inclement weather, the Indian Army pushed back the Pakistani offensive, recaptured all of the territories.
In an official statement, the Prime Minister's office confirmed that the Prime Minister will commence celebrations in Dras at 9:20 a.m. local time today.
Following this, the Prime Minister will virtually carry out the first blast at Shinkunla Tunnel project. This is being constructed at an astounding 15,800 feet to provide all-weather connectivity to Leh. Once completed, it will be the highest tunnel in the world. Shinkunla Tunnel will not only ensure swift and efficient movement of the country's armed forces, but also foster economic and social development in Ladakh.
India and China seem to be seeking some headway to end the impasse between both nations' Himalayan borders.
This is the Indian Foreign Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met with his Chinese counterpart for a second time in under 3 weeks, this time on the sidelines of the ASEAN meet in Laos.
In a post on social media X, the Indian FM stated that progress had been made in this meeting, building upon their previous rendezvous in Kazakhstan earlier this month. Following the meeting, both leaders collectively have emphasized on the need for a strong guidance to complete the disengagement process in eastern Ladakh, which continue to be a thorn in normalizing ties between both the nations.
The Indian Foreign Minister has also emphasized on India's position, which is the need for peace and tranquility on the borders and mutual respect for the line of actual control. In the wake of tensions at the border earlier in 2020, India and China have achieved disengagement at 4 points in the western sector. However, both powers remain at loggerheads at Depsang and Demchok, even after 21 rounds of military and 15 rounds of diplomatic talks. We now take a look at the rising geopolitical tug-of-war between the United States and China. What is this all about?
And what kind of advantage does America have in the artificial intelligence race, and can it be maintained?
How might it change under another term of President Trump? Let's take a look at this report for more details on this.
There are several sources of tension right now between US and China. Pure trade anxiety is a big one. The US has imposed tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, solar panels, and other important industrial components. Then there are direct geopolitical concerns with fears over a possible move by Beijing against Taiwan. And then there is artificial intelligence, which countries all around the world see as a crucial geopolitical asset. AI has the power to transform economies and militaries if and when it reaches sufficient strength and power. And so, American-based labs are going toe-to-toe with Chinese ones, investing enormous sums of money to get ahead and stay ahead in this race. The new running mate of Donald Trump is not shy in criticizing the People's Republic. "I don't like China," Senator J.D. Vance has stated. An assessment by UBS suggests that Trump's threat to put tariffs on Chinese goods of 60% may reduce China's GDP by as much as 2.5 percentage points. US generative AI models have broken new ground and established the country as a leader in the field. A crucial question arises in light of recent events and strategic decisions as the competition heats up. Is China lagging in generative AI? China's leadership has pushed AI domination vigorously, with lofty targets to become the global leader in artificial intelligence by 2030. The government has poured resources into R&D, enacting top-down plans like New Generation Artificial Intelligence Development Plan. However, there are major obstacles in China's AI ecosystem that might make it hard for the country to achieve its goals. Attracting and retaining elite talent from all around the globe is one of America's main assets in the AI race. Researchers and practitioners in AI flock to the nation for its world-class universities, innovative culture, and robust corporate sector. Comparatively, China has difficulties in attracting and retaining talent. China faces a brain drain as a result of its stringent visa regulations and the attraction of more collaborative and open search cultures in the US and Europe. The 1,000 Talents Plan and other Chinese programs are working to close this gap, but it's still a big obstacle. Ethical and trust issues have arisen around the world due to China's secretive data privacy policies and its use of AI for surveillance purposes. As a result, Chinese tech businesses have faced resistance and have been unable to expand into sensitive sectors on a global scale. Business Bureau Report, WION World is One.
US-listed Chinese electric vehicle companies are outspending Tesla on research and development.
Companies like NIO dedicated 29% of revenue to the R&D in the first quarter. Meanwhile, Tesla's R&D expenditure stands at a comparatively modest 5.4%.
This aggressive investment is a survival tactic in China's fiercely competitive EV market, where new energy vehicles account for over 40% of sales. Meanwhile, the question for Tesla remains, can this lower investment sustain its position in the world's largest auto market?
China's EV manufacturers are leveraging their domestic supply chain to their advantage. Companies are benefiting from a concentrated ecosystem where components are readily available. This proximity fosters rapid innovation and response to market demands. Additionally, these companies are shifting focus to software, recognizing it as a key differentiator in the EV space. Recent introduction of the Aegis short blade battery, designed to rival BYD's industry-leading product, underscores the intense competition in this sector as well.
While R&D intensity is a key metric, it's not the sole determinant of success. Companies like Li Auto, with a lower R&D expenditure, have achieved significant market share with their range extender vehicles. Moreover, the absolute dollars invested in R&D also matter. BYD, for instance, outspent Tesla in this regard during the first quarter. However, the dominance of CATL in batteries and Huawei in software presents a challenge for automakers seeking differentiation. China's economic slowdown and slump in luxury sales present another challenge. As the EV market matures, the ability to effectively navigate these external threats and tech will be crucial for long-term success.
All right, time now for all the developments from the world of technology. The global losses covered by insurance from last week's significant IT disruption are projected to be between $400 million and $1.5 billion. This is as per a report by cyber analytics firm CyberCube. Analysts say this outage could represent the largest individual cyber insurance claim to date. However, the firm noted that while the recent outage represents a significant development for the cyber insurance market, it did not reach the level of severity anticipated by leading insurers. Industry reports suggest that the insurance and reinsurance sectors are expected to remain largely unaffected financially by this event.
Meta's oversight board has criticized the company for having unclear rules about banning sexually explicit AI-generated images of real people. The board is urging Meta to revise its policies to prevent such content from appearing on its platforms. The independent board, which is funded by Meta, made this statement after finding 2 pornographic images of well-known women created using AI on Facebook and Instagram. These images were judged to have violated Meta's policy against derogatory sexualized Photoshop, which is considered a form of harassment. Meta has said that it will review the board's suggestions and will inform the public about any changes made in its policies.
A Taiwanese startup is setting its sights on becoming the first foreign company to launch a rocket from Japan by early next year. Supporters say this initiative aligns with Tokyo's goal of becoming a leading space center in Asia. TI Space, which is planning a suborbital launch, has encountered regulatory challenges and delays. These issues arise from discussions on whether Japan should welcome foreign businesses to help expand its $26 billion space sector. Founded in 2016 by former and current officials of Taiwan's space agency, the private company has not yet achieved a successful rocket launch. Its latest attempt in Australia in 2022 failed due to a leak in the oxidizer.
Two-time Grand Slam champion Rohan Bopanna will lead Indian tennis's charge at the Paris Games. He will partner with Sri Ram Balaji in the men's doubles competition.
And the 44-year-old spoke to WION Sports editor Digvijay Singh Deo in the French capital and paid a fitting tribute to Rafael Nadal and Andy Murray, who are playing their final Olympic Games. Listen to this.
You're the last of the golden generation of Indian tennis, and there weren't anyone around for you to partner with. You played with Mahesh before, you played with Leander as well, won Olympics. So what made you pick Sri Ram as your partner? Because by virtue of being a top 10 player, you were guaranteed a pick. It's unfortunate last time India didn't have anyone in mixed doubles, and you were very agitated about that. So what made you pick Sri Ram, and what are the attributes that you think will help you all in your campaign here at the Olympics?
I think the realistic belief started, end of the year when we qualified for Turin with my partner Matthew, and that I have a significantly high quality partner by my side where I can definitely look to remain top 10 during the Paris Olympics. So, and then India has that spot guaranteed, and the two names which were realistically there and giving me an obvious chance to play was Sriram Balaji and Yuki Bambri. And these two guys who have been playing the challenger level, the tour events, so they've been playing good tennis, and I felt Sriram's game style for this kind of surface could be the best option for me, best pick for me. No matter who I was going to play with, they were here going to be making their debut. So it was not like it was an obvious choice, but I went with Balaji just because he has an explosive game style, and I've kind of done well with the kind of partners like that in the past, and he had a good clay court season as well, so I thought let's give it a shot and see how that goes.
While your focus, Rohan, is on winning a medal for India, I'll leave it at that. Winning a medal for India is a priority for every sportsperson. As a tennis player, are you also keenly observing what's happening around you? Because lots of storylines at these Olympic Games. Andy Murray said that this is going to be his last tournament, probably the last Olympics for Djokovic, and we all know that the end is coming for Rafael Nadal as well.
I think it's
an end of an era, right?
As a tennis player, I mean, we should all appreciate the era. I've been thankful to be playing at the same time as these guys and sharing the locker room space with these guys, and I've had some great memories. Practiced with them quite a bit. Played against them also many times, and the same team as well. With them. So it's yes, of course, when you do read about that the journey is coming to an end, it does make everyone, I think, feels sad about it, but I think there is a time for everyone where they have enjoyed the journey, been in that journey, and then take it one step at a time.
All right, news now from the world of entertainment. Rolling Stone star Mick Jagger turns 81 today. In our next report, we get you more about Mick Jagger's controversial life. Take a look.
Now, born on July 26, 1943, Michael Philip Jagger was only 18 years old when the Rolling Stones played their first official gig in 1962. But what many would not know was that Jagger was his bandmate Keith Richards, and his bandmates were childhood friends. 5 years after they formed the band, the two were arrested for drug possession, while Jagger was sentenced to 3 months. Richards was sentenced to prison for a year. The sentences were later overturned. It's not drugs alone that the young Mick Jagger was often associated with. According to his biographer, Jagger is rumored to have been involved with over 4,000 women. But he was only in 5 serious relationships and has 8 children with those 5 women, the oldest of whom was born in 1970 and the youngest in 2016 when Jagger was 73 years old.
Now, the next fact may come as a surprise to many. In 1969, someone hired a group of Hells Angels as bodyguards to kill Mick Jagger. The incident took place during a show where Rolling Stones was performing. Luckily, Mick Jagger was saved. The rock star later denounced the Hells Angels and refused to work with them again.
In 1972, Mick Jagger, along with his band, the Rolling Stones, moved to the south of France to escape British taxes. Though it became quite a controversy at that time, it spawned one of the group's most seminal albums, Exile on Main Street. The title is a reference to their tax dodging.
Jagger may still be one of the most controversial figures in the music industry, but his 50-plus long career has been filled with the wildest, coolest and most outrageous moments.
And the best week for Marvel fans begins today.
The much-awaited superhero film Deadpool and Wolverine is out in theatres. This marks the studio's first theatrical release in 2024. But what makes this Marvel movie so special? Our next report has all the details.
Project Deadpool was one of the first franchises which survived after 20th Fox Century merged with Disney in 2019. The studio, which is famous for its family-friendly fairytale ending releases, confirmed the continuation of a franchise which included a foul-mouthed superhero Deadpool as its lead character. For cinephiles, the decision itself came as a huge shock. This maroon mercenary and Wolverine are the antithesis of everything Disney stands for. Deadpool and Wolverine is also the second step towards including the X-Men and Fantastic Four character inside the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Some of these memorable characters already enjoyed a cameo in the 2022 film Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. In 2023, Marvel confirmed the return of Jennifer Garner in Deadpool 3. Garner, who originally featured as Elektra opposite Ben Affleck in the 2003 release, will be reprising her role after 20 years. The final Deadpool and Wolverine trailer teased fans with the arrival of Lady Deadpool. The clip featured a mysterious blonde woman in red boots and the signature belt. While some guessed it to be star Ryan Reynolds' wife, Blake Lively, others were sure that it was Taylor Swift. What many would not know is that the Deadpool franchise is Ryan Reynolds' passion project. The actor has always displayed a special